Hello, everyone. I'm meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe. Thank you so much for joining us for this live Q&A. I am joined by meteorologists, Armel Castellan, Environment Canada warning preparedness meteorologist. So nice to have you to take live questions on all things smoke, Armel.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show, Joe. It's always nice to say hi.
And to geek out. I mean, we are looking forward to chatting about the smoke that has now been in place for over a week. We know we've got a stark turnaround in seasons ahead, so we want to talk to you a little bit about that. I've got your live questions coming in, so if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, please keep the questions coming in and we will see them and we'll do our best to answer them. So let's get started, Armel, because I'm looking out my window right now and we still have that smoke in place. You and I both knew it was going to take a little bit of time, even though the door is open to Pacific systems, which is what we were really waiting for, a good train of Pacific air and systems to really mix out the smoke in place. But I'm thinking by tomorrow, we might even start to see a dramatic improvement in air quality. What are you seeing on your end, Armel?
Yeah, absolutely, Joe. We're definitely on the way out, which is so nice to have. I mean, we've been breathing cleaner air here in Victoria since, really last night. And, it's moving its way up from the Juan de Fuca, up through Puget Sound a little bit, and then into the San Juan Islands and the Gulf Islands. So parts of Vancouver Island are already in that cleaner air. It's still going to mix around. We'll see pockets of smoke still, and it's going to be thick at times, and then it's going to eventually reach the lower mainland and really affect you and everybody else. I have a friend who says we've got a wedding tomorrow and he needs to have clean air as well. So the timing is perfect. It's going to take until tomorrow, but we're definitely on our way out, and that Pacific air is starting to win, which is really what we wanted to see, Joe.
We've been waiting for that Pacific air forever, Armel. So yes, I think all of us glad to have it in place for a number of reasons. I should mention that Armel is in Victoria and I'm in Vancouver, so you might get improved air quality slightly sooner than we will here. But I actually want to show you a live look of what downtown Vancouver looks like right now as I take you through the first of many questions we have coming in. So did the rainfall this week help out at all? How much more do we need to get rid of it? So that's a question already coming in from our social lines. And we did see a couple of rounds of convective showers, Armel, this week across the south coast. We saw a slight improvement in air quality, but we really needed more than just a couple of hours. So as far as exactly how many hours of rain, I think it's more a question of a number of factors, the kind of instability we have in the atmosphere, a continuous westerly flow and continuous showers to help mix things out. So do you have any sort of rules of thumb when it comes to hours of rain, Armel?
Yeah, it's not going to be a specific number of hours. It's going to be a combination of the rain for sure. That's so helpful. It actually does clean out the atmosphere as it's falling through, hitting the dust particles, the ash, etc. But we also need the wind, because without it, we're not going to advect. We're not going to move this horizontally anywhere. And that's exactly what we're starting to see. So, we're going to have, it's not a super vigorous storm, but it is coming through. And the other really interesting part is, well, what about if more smoke comes? Well, the fires in Washington and Oregon, less in California, were hit with wet lightning overnight, and a lot of it. So actually, there's really good news that at least the sources of this smoke that's affecting us from the south is starting to curb, and that's also another piece to try and eliminate as we go into the storm cycle. Joe?
I'm really glad you mentioned that, Armel. We've already got a question. Kay Bertos from Facebook asking, is rain forecast for California, Oregon, and Washington to quell the wildfires there? And yeah, we were all watching for this line of storms to roll up the west coast. We were worried about dry lightning earlier this week, but this was, as you said, wet lightning, so getting some good news. And the Pacific Northwest is all in the same boat. We're all entering into this sort of fall season, which we will talk more of. California still has a couple more months of fire season, but getting some good rain thanks to this general pattern flow. So yes, some good news for everyone. Corey Van Bert from Facebook asks, can we expect this to happen again while the states are still burning. So yes, the Pacific Northwest, their fire season is ending just like ours is, but Armel, California still has a couple of months to go. Still a possibility for some more Santa Ana wind events. And something else I wanted to mention, with all this rain falling, I know Northern Oregon actually had some flash flood warnings in place for the burnt areas. So it's amazing how quickly you can go from one extreme weather event to another. They need the rain. They're going to get it in Oregon, but all the places that saw massive burning now worried about debris flows. So we'll keep you posted on that one. But Armel, what are you thinking about the California season?
Yeah, well, back to the Oregon piece, that's insult to injury. And, it's something that we see here in BC with the Elephant Hill fire from 2017. We've had a number of occasions where Highway 1 was closed as a result of that burn scar being so much more susceptible to debris flow. So this is happening up and down the coast. California, like you said, it's starting its season. We've seen fires there in recent years going through Christmas into the new year, and not just small fires, but internationally big time fires. And, if that's the case, there's always the possibility that we get a south flow. But, at the end of the day, with the fall pattern coming in full force next week, if we get some smoke, it'll likely be very temporary, and it will be kind of ushered away to the east into the interior, and then they can deal with it and flush it into the prairies. So I don't expect we're going to see the concentrations come up the same, 200 micrograms per cubic meter all over the Salish Sea. That's absurd. In fact, I've got some numbers for you. Victoria International Airport saw, as of this morning, 169 hours of smoke at the airport. That's huge.
Wow.
In 2018, we only hit 110 hours. So we've totally eclipsed it. And we've even seen 6 straight days. In 2018, we only saw 4 straight days of smoke with on and off, on and off. This time it was so concentrated for such a long period of time, and in September. Totally unprecedented.
That is incredible. I knew we were getting close to surpassing those numbers. And yeah, Armel at Environment Canada and his team, really the only ones that have those climatological numbers. So if you thought this year was bad, you were right. And unfortunately, with climate change and increased wildfire seasons south and north of the border, smoke is going to be a big reality in our future. I want to get back to our local forecast. Still getting some great questions in. If you're just joining us now, I'm meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe, and I'm chatting with Environment Canada meteorologist Armel Castellan about all things smoke and when it'll finally clear. And on that note, question from Facebook: is it safe to go for a bike ride or hike this weekend? So we've been talking about this change in weather pattern. I'd like to talk to you about the start time for the rain, because not all the models are in agreement, but we are going to get some rain this evening, Armel. I'm thinking by this weekend we will see enough mixing that you can head outdoors and that air quality number will be in safe limits. What are you thinking, Armel?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first point is all about the air quality health index and where you stack up on it. So if you're healthy adult population and you see those numbers start to go into the high or the moderate scale, even in the low, then you know you're safe. And unless you know you have a pre-existing condition or this last week has been extraordinarily hard for you, you're probably more in the clear. It's for those people who are still, in the vulnerable group, the children, pregnant women, elderly, all cardiovascular and respiratory illness. Those folks, they know how difficult this period has been. And for sure, you want to be super careful as we emerge and not jump the gun. This is a relatively short lasting event when we consider how good we have it almost all of the rest of the year. So yeah, just be patient. The air quality health index numbers will drop over the course of today, tonight. Certainly by the weekend for the South Coast, it's going to be a huge improvement. It's not going to be perfect, but guaranteed any of the local smoke that's still left after these showers, after this little bit of a Pacific push, are going to be completely eradicated by the time we get to Wednesday, Thursday of next week, when we get a moving, progressive atmospheric river. So Pineapple Express is on the doorstep, and it's just brewing in the Pacific now, Joe.
Yes, I'm glad you mentioned the our first atmospheric river of the season. I want to talk more about that, but just on the forecast note, we've got some listeners from the Okanagan. Seren Situ from YouTube asked, will clearing reach the Okanagan anytime soon as well? And might have to wait another day or so towards the end of the weekend into early next week, just because a lot of these coastal showers don't quite make it across to the interior at first. So Armel, you thinking just wait maybe a slightly longer for the interior?
Yeah, the interior is always delayed when we deal with Pacific impulses. Sometimes it's kind of a half a day, sometimes it's the day after. But, we've been looking at the Okanagan, up to Revelstoke, and it's actually just pushing all the way up into the Bulkley Valley and the South Peace. So not the concentration that we've had here, but still, worth the consideration. And for the South Interior, it's been very bad. Castlegar has been extraordinarily bad, up at 500 micrograms per cubic meter, which is so off the charts that, yes, we're in air quality health index 10, but now it's finally started to come down. Saturday, we'll see an improvement for sure in the interior as well. We're going to see that westerly push, so that's good news. Is it going to be quite enough to erode it all the way down to the valley bottoms? Perhaps not, but the values will have come down significantly, and by the end of the weekend, you can expect that the air quality health index will have dropped significantly for sure. Joe.
The beginning of the end has begun across all of BC. If you're just joining us now, I'm meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe from CBC, and I'm chatting with Environment Canada meteorologist Armel Castellan. All questions smoke, and we're sliding in some big picture ideas as well. I just want to, Armel, for a moment, talk about all the work that you and your team have done this past week. We've got a question actually from Ken Simpson on Facebook. How well do Environment Canada's models incorporate smoke data? And this is a really interesting one because you and I mean, on my own, I found it very hard following the models that we had. They weren't, obviously, they didn't come with as much confidence as some of our other models, but you were mentioning what a sort of new field this is, smoke forecasting. So I wonder if you could just talk a little bit about that and, how your team works, because you've been amazing, I have to say, communicating and getting the message out as best as you can.
Well, thanks for the vote of confidence, Joe. It's always nice to hear that. And, smoke forecasting is so difficult. It's actually way newer in terms of the modeling side of things than regular forecasting. So for sure, we're on that forefront. There's a few models out there between Blue Sky and ours is called Firework. It's really quite impressive how the start of this event materialized. On Friday morning, that was like really well captured. It was like Sunday into Monday where we tried to get some winds mixing down to the surface. That was hard for the model to capture because smoke actually reflects sunlight. So we were getting temperatures that were 5, even close to 10 degrees colder than normal. That affects how much wind mixes down to the surface and how much you can move this the smoke around. So it took its time to get from very thick to a thinning layer, still concentrated at the surface. And there was also the wild card of having new smoke being pumped up from the Cascades. So yeah, the forecasting is going to learn a lot. The models are going to be adjusted because of this event, because they don't happen all the time. Also the forecaster practice on it. You see these events like every couple of years. You're not as spun up as you would be with the heat events or the convective events. So yeah, it's definitely a work in progress. And it's been amazing to see where the model does super well and where it's not doing as well. And for instance, I'll show you this. This is quite fascinating. If you look at my screen right now, you can see.
Yes, please. I love getting an insight into your models.
Uh-oh. Can you see that? There we go. This is. Can you see that? Sorry. Anyways, what you're seeing here.
Yeah,
okay.
I can.
Yeah, what you're seeing here is the Juan de Fuca Strait with a bunch of blue dots, and they're signifying really good air quality, whereas Vancouver and even, Crofton, Duncan are still dealing with air quality that's not so great. And this is kind of one way to look at how Juan de Fuca gets the west wind and then really ushers that clear wind or that clear air into the southern straits. And the other thing you can look at is our model that looks like this. And you can see that it does a really good job at seeing Juan de Fuca clearing out and south of Vancouver Island. And then You've got still the Lower Mainland dealing with some quality of poor air quality. So turns out that the models right now is doing really good job, and so we're really expecting that the weekend does emerge, and it's really only a local smoke problem instead of a wide smoke problem at that point.
Thank you for sharing those. Yes, I love kind of getting an insight into the different models that you use over at Environment Canada. We've got a question from Martin Hansen on Facebook. Vancouver is reported to have the worst air quality in the world. How are cities closer to the wildfires not experiencing worse air? Is this a result of winds or just more accurate air quality monitoring? Great question. Indeed, the cities closer to the fires, San Francisco, then it was Portland and Seattle, saw the smoke and the poor air qualities before we did. You probably saw those eerie pictures of red skies in San Francisco. It really has to do, as you said, Martin, with all of these sort of local and large-scale weather patterns and how high the fire is ejecting that smoke up into the atmosphere. So if you get these really hot fires producing these incredible updrafts of heat, bringing those fine particulate matter into the jet stream and upper layers, that's where they can get carried north. We get some sinking air pressure like we've had with our high pressure, bringing that smoke down to lower levels and almost sort of skipping some of the cities across the coast. So yeah, we went from being sort of third worst to worst when we were straight in the firing line. And then Armel, something else that happened is I guess it was earlier in the week, we had a wind direction that wasn't actually bringing us new smoke, but it was just all of the smoke that we had seen was locked in place. And I think those were some of the days that we had some of the worst air quality. So yeah, a lot of different factors in there. Did I sort of sum it up, Armel?
Totally, you did, Joe. When you think about Vancouver in particular, it's protected by Vancouver Island. So it's not the same as being on a very linear coast like parts of California and parts of Oregon, where you don't have islands, protecting you so much. So in a lot of ways, you can be closer to a fire, but the micrometeorology means that, the winds are just going, upslope and north, so heading towards us. You're not going to be affected by it, and you could be, a couple 100 kilometers away, whereas we might be several more 100 kilometers away and dealing with that stagnant pattern. Luckily, we're all in the mid-latitudes and fall spells out storms. And, we're going to see at least the start of a parade of storms next week, Wednesday, and then again, kind of Friday, Saturday. So we've got lots of benefits from shifting seasons right now. Luckily, this isn't happening at the end of July. We could be in for a much longer smoke event.
That's a very good point. Yes, we are applauding the arrival of fall. If you're just joining us now, I'm meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe, chatting with Armel Castellan from Environment Canada. Just two meteorologists talking smoke forecasting and when we will finally see things clear out when we get into this fall pattern starting this evening. A couple of, these are great questions we're getting in. I just want to get through a few right now having to do with health and smoke. This one from Gurrit Carr from Facebook. Sorry if I'm trying these names on the fly. Asks, is there a safe amount of time to be outside? So when air quality is as bad as it has been, Armel, I think it's important to note that you said it really well previously when we chatted. You kind of have to know your own limits in a way and know how you deal with the smoke levels, because you can't really stay trapped inside for over a week now. What are you sort of saying on your end, Armel?
Yeah, really good point, Joe. The end of the day, two meteorologists speaking is super nerdy and good, but we also have doctors, health agencies, Health Canada, BC Centre for Disease Control. There are a lot of really intelligent, biologists behind this as well, and they put together the majority of the air quality health index, and it speaks exactly to that. It has to be a personal thing. Think about what you've spoken to your doctor about. Take it internally and then adjust and interpret what that matrix is saying. So if it's saying, reschedule or postpone or maybe just reduce, maybe you're in that reduce category, maybe you're in that postpone because you're already feeling pretty, nauseous about this whole event. So it's all about making sure you're thinking about it on a personal level And maybe for people who aren't, hip to this information, you can reach out to them just like we do during a heat event. Call your grandma, call your uncle, and remind them, like, this is one of those times you want to stay hydrated. In this case, it's like one of those times, keep your windows and your doors closed, see if you can recycle the air, and then get moving once it's adequate for you on a personal scale. Joe?
Armel, I've got a question from YouTube. This is a great one that I think a lot of people have been wondering. Why are there different scales for measuring air quality? And Armel, this might be a nice moment as well for you to sort of chat more about your team. There's the AQI versus AQHI, the Air Quality Health Index. Now, as far as I know, the Air Quality Health Index sort of is a measure of the air quality versus health risks, and that's the 1 to 10 plus scale we have. Whereas I think a lot of people over this past week have been introduced to the concept of particulate matter 2.5, a term that I never thought would go viral. But I think the public, you are all sort of becoming wise to the science behind things. So Armel, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's music to my ears that PM 2.5 is a term that is actually starting to get mainstream. And, it is confusing, and it's actually super multi-jurisdictionary to have air quality be, it's at the Metro Vancouver level. They have meteorologists looking at it in their airshed itself. We've got an amazing team of air quality meteorologists at the Ministry of Environment at the provincial level. So big shout out to them. They're actually the ones who issue the special air quality statements, which include the Smoky Sky bulletins that we've been reading here for the past week. We redisseminate them on our platform, which goes out very wide. So it looks like it's coming from Environment Canada. And our part is the Air Quality Health Index, like you just mentioned. And it is definitely different from the AQI that the US uses in some other countries, but it really speaks to the health implication. We're moving from a hazard-based forecasting, not just talking about smoke and particulate matter, but what does that mean? What is the impact to your health? And that's why we've shifted to that 1 to 10 plus scale to talk about the risk to health and the messaging behind it. Joe?
Thank you for that, Armel. Yeah, I think that sort of really clears things up. If you're just joining us, Johanna Wagstaffe, Armel Castellan, taking all your questions on smoke. I'm meteorologist from CBC and meteorologist from Environment Canada. A couple quick questions just coming in. I think we've still got a few more minutes if people have questions and are watching from YouTube or Facebook. This one from, I know this is a topic, Armel, you have looked into more than I have. Emily Yoko from Facebook asking, do you suggest using an air purifier at home? Armel?
Yeah, so super good question, Emily. What I would suggest is exactly what Dr. Henderson has said and other experts have at the BC Centre for Disease Control. They say, okay, if you can find a HEPA filter, HEPA, sorry, you can use that in your forced air system at home and recycle the air. You don't need to heat it or cool it, just recycle the air through that filter. And there's also, the poor person version of that, which is take a square fan, tape it to the outside. You never want to leave those unattended, caveat, really important, but you can recycle the air in a given room, maybe overnight, and then follow it into your home office like I'm doing. And then you can clear the air in a room fairly easily and cheaply, under $100. There's a lot of YouTubes out there on showing you how to do that. So those are certainly things you can do. The other parts are, going outside, like go outside a little bit. You have to weigh mental health versus physical health, but know yourself and then how much to exert yourself in that poor air quality. And then know that in this location on the world, we are so blessed with such good air that in the next few days, we're going to see it emerge and we can all get out to our healthy outdoor lifestyles. Joe?
Armel, I know, you mentioned you have great relationships working for Environment Canada with other health agencies. And I want to pose this one to you from Kay Pertos from Facebook. Kay asks, can we harvest our gardens with the smoke from the wildfires as well as the locally toxic purifier in New Westminster? And this actually kind of goes hand in hand, just to add in someone else's question. So that was from Kay. And then Janine Erickson from Facebook asking, how damaging is this smoke to our lungs? So again, you sort of know this deep dive into health a little better than I do, because I know the smoke particles are, just it's the fact that they're so small that they can get into our lungs and irritate it. But I don't know a lot about the long-lasting effects, or if it can impact things like our own gardens, Armel.
Yeah, the garden question is an interesting one. I tend to think it's like ash, and it's probably not going to be that bad for agriculture, but a little bit
Mm-hmm.
outside of my. That said, we do know that, wood smoke or forest fire smoke is actually a medley. It's a chemical compound. It's not pure uh, ash itself. There's also volatile organic compounds, nitrous oxides in there. So it's that whole medley, and what happens is it does go into your lungs. In fact, it's so small, most of it is actually below 1 micron. The bell curve is way shifted over. So we call it 2.5, but it's actually almost PM 1.0. And it goes so deep into your lungs, it can actually make it into your bloodstream. And that's where the epidemiologists get really worried, because they know that that creates damage to organs and so on. So yeah, I mean, who knew going into meteorology, like you and I, we'd be looking at, the way the atmosphere moves, and then how it then internalizes all the way into like a health effect or a mood. It's actually quite amazing, the implications of weather. And at the end of the day, it's all about the weather, right, Joe?
It's all about the weather. I'm so glad you said that. Yeah, very interesting points, Armel. I feel like you and I could deep dive on a lot of things over the course of a few hours, but we're going to start to wrap things up. And I just want to summarize for everyone watching the forecast and when the smoke will finally clear out. So we're expecting rain this afternoon, evening, and I want to talk more about that with you, Armel, in just a moment. But already we're seeing a change in the weather pattern that will stick around through the weekend and into early next week. So by even overnight into the weekend, we do expect better air quality for the South Coast, a couple days later for the Okanagan, and certainly whatever we don't get flushed out this weekend, a more vigorous system is coming for next week. We should see all of our smoke clear out now that we're getting into a fall pattern. But Armel, I'm going to end on this. What are you thinking for the timing of the rain tonight? Because I love that meteorologists have this great relationship where you can work for different agencies, different stations, you can be competitors, and we're all here to deliver a message to the public. So we work together like no other job that I know in the world. There is still a level of healthy competition. So what time are you thinking the showers will start for Victoria and Vancouver, Armel?
Yeah, well, they're really on the doorstep, Joe. And what's most difficult about those upper lows kind of spinning around is they're actually the hardest thing to forecast. And it's not that big storm that we're going to see on Wednesday where we're going to say, guess what, the timing is roughly this, but then it's on and you're going to get a deluge. This is actually a lot more complicated. We've had pops or probabilities of precipitation of 40, 60 over the last few days, and some of them have materialized, some of them a little bit less so. And this evening, or earlier this afternoon, we'll see those showers hit Victoria. And Vancouver is 100 kilometers north of Victoria, so we still have a few more hours before those really materialize. There's a little bit of a wild card because this is also a little bit convective, right? There's a little hint of risk of thunderstorm associated to this. We've seen them up and down the Washington coast already. So how much and when is going to be actually super difficult. And I agree. I mean, healthy competition, but we're all in this together because we do want to see that rain. We want to flush this away. And, it's a really good trend we're on right now. It's just going to be longer for, eastern Fraser Valley and north shore of Vancouver, where the concentrations are still the highest. But the good news is this is coming through. It's most of the models are agreeing on that, and also a little bit of the wind as well. And like you said, now that we're into that high and moderate level of air quality, it's kind of moving around. It's actually quite difficult, but at least we're into those better values. And so we're just looking forward to getting down to the low, by this weekend. And for sure for the interior, it's going to be a little bit delayed into later on Saturday, if not even on Sunday, before the clearings really materialize.
Armel, thank you so much also for reminding my bosses that these spinning offshore lows are quite difficult. So thank you for that.
All right.
And thank you so much, Armel, for joining us. And thank you everyone who has joined us on Facebook and YouTube. This will all be available to watch from the beginning. We'll see if we can post some. I know we've got our team following along and posting links, so hopefully we have or will get to all your questions. But yeah, here's to a fall forecast. Armel, thank you so much. I hope to chat with you again on any number of topics down the road, and enjoy your much cleaner weekend, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.